All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Have we been properly noticed?
Meeting's been posted according to law.
Roll call, please.
President Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Harding.
Here.
Trustee Holm.
Here.
Trustee Moody.
Here.
Trustee Nugent. Here. Trustee Seeger.
Here.
All right. We'll start with citizen participation. Per Village Resolution 2017-01, anyone wishing to address the village board during citizen participation will be allowed 5 minutes. Your subject must specifically relate to matters under the jurisdiction of the village board, whether on the agenda or not. The village board should not engage in a discussion regarding comments because it was not part of the publicly noticed agenda. Upon conclusion of this citizen participation segment, members of the audience are not allowed further comment unless they're participating in a public hearing or specifically allowed by a majority vote of the village board due to involvement in an agenda item. Anybody have anything for citizen participation? If you do, just come up and push the button, state your name and address. There's a little people button icon there. It'll turn green.
There? Hi. My name is John Turner. I live at 2930 Main Street. And I was wanting to visit about the proposed angle parking for Clark Street. I do have a couple of things to say, but I did bring a couple of photos to pass. I think I'll get to that in a second. So as we are the house that's on Main and Clark, we're going to be the most impacted by angle parking. We do have a couple of safety concerns, especially with reduced visibility of angle parking, especially on turning onto Main Street. I've got a couple of photos to pass. With the new parking that was, what if you wanted to pass this now? So if you take a look at those. So this was taken on at 12:53 on Saturday. So that was basically like what the height of traffic would have been about that time, especially with the new Excellent Cafe. If you take a look at those, that's where I snapped a photo of looking for oncoming traffic coming in from the left-hand side. As it stands right now, you really have, as you can see, you have to go almost all the way into traffic and through the crosswalk in order to see traffic coming in from the left-hand side. So that's for folks that are going left, and I know as the resident there, I generally even try to avoid it as best I possibly can. With adding angle parking, my concern is you'll push all of that traffic more towards the, oh gosh, forgive me. So it's going to push traffic more towards the left-hand side, and you'll have to go further out into traffic in order to see anything that's oncoming. We also do have some concerns about reversing, as I've got 3 kids. They're aged 13, 11, and 8. When I brought that up to them, they're like, but we hang out there. Not in the street, but in that area. The higher volume of traffic, especially with some of the activities that are going on late at night, would there be any restrictions as far as timing? Would there be any restrictions as far as overnight parking? Who would be responsible for any property damage should that happen to my property or something along those lines? The loss of privacy with folks that are coming and going. Angle parking would be looking straight into my living room, right into my backyard. Our question really honestly is, I know that it's for the entirety of Clark Street, but why in front of that residential building specifically? The folks that work across the street from us, there's a detailing business and then there's a tree business. The owners were not able to make it tonight, but Adam Smalley and Alex Alger have both said that it would impact their business as far as getting in and out of those garages. The detailing business says that he often does boats. It would be difficult for him to do on Saturdays specifically. And then the other gentleman has tree removal, I don't know, work vehicles and so forth that come on, that are there very often. And then the other thing too is, with this change, would the village be considering moving that to a one-way street? Just because we are a little bit concerned as far as like traffic coming in, as I'd kind of illustrated in those photos. Imagine trying to come in for folks that are making a right-hand turn as well as a left-hand turn. I think those were most of my concerns. I know that there's some other folks that may want to visit about it as well. Any questions for me?
Nope,
Thanks.
thank you, thanks for the pictures as well. Okay, we'll continue. Others for citizen participation. Just push the little people icon button there and state your name and address, please.
When the green light goes, I guess so. You can hear me, okay. Hi, my name is Michael Wozniak. I live at 2938 Main Street. I'm not on Clark Street, however. I do believe that having the parking that you plan to propose is also going to be an invasion of my privacy. I'm going to have the lights shining in at night at people coming in. I'm concerned about, we already have a problem on Main Street with the speeding and stuff and the bar people coming through and stuff like that. And I'm really concerned about the type of noise and the type of, basically the noise problem that we may have to endure with people trying to get to their cars. I mean, is there going to be a restriction where you're not going to be able to park there at night, or can you park overnight over the thing? Is there, there's a couple of things. Is there going to be a restriction on the parking, or?
That's for us to discuss on our agenda this evening.
Oh, okay. Because, like I said, at nightfall, if I'm sitting in my backyard and I want to talk to my friends, and I don't need flashing lights coming at me from somebody starting up the car and stuff of that nature as well. And the area is getting very, very busy as far as traffic goes, compared to what I've seen in all the years I've gone down here. And I don't understand why we would need more parking on Clark Street. What purpose does it help the residential areas? What I'm concerned about. I mean, I don't understand why we need more parking there. Or is there for business or what? I'm not sure what the purpose is of changing the parking on Clark. So
I'm not really supposed to engage in a conversation about, so we'll try to answer those questions for you during the first agenda item when we get to miscellaneous business.
okay.
So, yep.
Because those are my concerns, and I don't think it's necessary. So basically, I oppose the idea. So, but I do thank you for giving me your time to listen to what I have to say on it.
Thank you. Other comments during citizen participation? The button's already hit, it's already green, so just state your name and address, please.
Thanks, y'all. My name's Ashley Turner. I also live at 2930 Main Street. One of the only things that I'll reiterate here is that our home is kind of the first, and we are the first on the street where it goes from being pretty heavily commercial to residential. And, adding parking in for those commercial spaces, that's fine for them. I mean, I assume they were approved without their parking. So retrofitting our city neighborhood street, residential street, to accommodate those businesses without considering the impact of what it creates for our homes, I think it's something I'd really ask you to look at. I will also share with you that I have an autistic child that lives in that house. They are going to be exposed to additional, again, their sensory impacted, and we're going to increase exposure to people, strangers. Lights are a thing, but also, I mean, again, it kind of changes our house to being a focal point and making people stare at the place where my kids play, which, in a commercial space, you want people looking at you. In your residential space, probably less so. So I'd really ask you to just consider, we are a home. We are not using that property to to sell goods and services. We would like it to remain comfortable and friendly for residential use. Anyway, thanks very much.
Thank you. Other comments during citizen participation? Going once? Going twice? Okay, I will close citizen participation. We will try to address many of those questions during the first agenda item under miscellaneous business, but thank you. We'll move on to consent agenda. One motion and a second will approve all the following items. Any item may be pulled from the list and voted on separately.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Item 1, direction to staff for Clark Street angle parking. Jason, you want to take this?
Okay, so what you're looking at in the packet, the exhibit is the exact same thing we looked at last time. There's been no changes made to that. Direction from the board last time was to send out a letter to the neighborhood and to bring it back. And Chief and I discussed ordinance. The board had also said, let's try to do this without amending any ordinances. And what we're proposing is that it be treated like the rest of the parking on the square. And there's no parking any time of the year from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., Chief, right? 2:30 to 5 a.m. And no permits for that. Otherwise, like I said, there's no, there would be one slight amendment to ordinance, and that's we would have to add verbiage in the existing ordinance that calls out this segment of Clark Street if that's the route we were going to go. But otherwise, this is the exact same thing we looked at last time.
We have ordinance language defining a loading zone, right? You said?
Yes.
Because I know Alex has had his holiday rambler there for a little bit. How does that ordinance handle that?
I'll let you take that one.
He wouldn't be able to have that there. It's just short-term to load and unload his equipment like he requested when Jason talked to him about it. He said he'd like to have it just so he can load and unload his stuff. So something staying there overnight would not be allowed, or all day.
For sake of discussion, is there any way, looking at this on the map, going on what these people expressed, to just do the angled parking on the north half of the street? Would that be a whole different conversation? Since the parking is really meant for the businesses, like they said, would that be an option to do the angled parking from just in front of the church and not in front of the home there?
Part of the challenge is here is if we were to do that, we wouldn't gain many parking spots over what we have today, so then it wouldn't make sense to make a change, if that makes sense.
The same question, Dan. Because it's a mixed-use street. Part is commercial, part is residential. And I appreciate we're residential. Yeah, I appreciate some of the concerns of the residents. But I also appreciate, as a business, trying to have some additional. And it looks like it could be an interesting option. Plus, then we don't have to worry about the loading zone on the other side.
Well, and as our resident expressed too, and with these great pictures, I've driven that and had the same issue when you have 3 vehicles parked there. It's a challenge to see, be able, when you come out. I think I did that the other day. When there's, especially in that front one where the Cybertruck is in the picture. So I think that's going to happen regardless. I know we talked a little bit about a jut out there, but I think that was our concern. I know you guys did, and maybe they did not, weren't aware of our discussion prior, but can you talk a little bit about kind of your testing of the two-way aspect of this, just as a reminder for everybody?
Sure. Basically, what we did is we parked a longer pickup truck at an angle similar to what we're proposing here, and then we took a couple of DPW vehicles to make sure there were clearances in each driving lane. And it does get tight, you know, when there is something parked in the loading zone, but there is enough room to maneuver through there.
So we're talking about a dozen spaces here, right? If we just did the area in front of the business. That's what I counted up, I think. So that's 12, and then.
I think currently we have 14 the way it is today.
Okay, for the entire stretch of the street.
And then if we were the exhibit, I believe, calls out 21 spaces versus the 14 we have today.
Sure. So if we have the 12 that are angled only in the area where the business is, then we still have the straight parking ability at the end near the residence areas, and we don't have any impediment in the loading area. That kind of all makes sense. So what we'll probably end up having 20 total spaces then, maybe?
And then you would lose the parking on the east side of Clark Street as well, where the angle parking is.
Okay. Just before we did the renovations in the square, we did, we identified that we had a 60-degree angle of vehicles, which caused less amount of vehicles to be parked around that square, and we changed that to a 45-degree angle. As far as making it easier for traffic to get through that area, would the 60-degree be an option? Maybe we'd lose a spot, but
Yeah, I'd have to have Tim run it, you know, provide us an exhibit of that. We never discussed the angle. I assume he just went with the best alternative there was, but I don't know if they evaluated a different angle or not. I'm not sure of that.
We investigate a little bit more then, to see if that would make a difference in gaining a little more space?
I can have Tim run that and bring that back if that's what you'd like to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Gentlemen?
I agree, Mary. Let's have some more information in front of us before we make any kind of decision on this.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I'd like to see a space count with the different options that we've talked about here. So, you know, because we just have the one diagram here. So if we make no changes, we have X number of, spaces, right? And then if we have this, we have, what would you say, 21 spaces. And then if he changes the angle, what does that do? And then, well, what if we only do, as Dan said, we only have it on the north side and not by the residential there. So just kind of, because, if it's actually going to be a net loss by just doing the north side, right, then, why would we make this change then? Correct. Right? I think that, the traffic concerns here that we have in the pictures, I think we have these concerns as is, and I think we probably need to have a conversation about that parking spot there that's in this picture where the Cybertruck is. It's a little difficult to see. So we may need to look at that. But I think we need to factor in the residential concerns that have been brought up here.
Yeah, I think maybe even if we can go a step further in this whole process, I was witness to an accident right at that intersection as well. And it's because you can't see around the vehicles that are in that area. It was a night issue as well. But maybe even looking into just a small yield sign that would be in a crosswalk normal area to help in that situation. We're kind of just opening up a couple of things that are going on in that space now that we have so much more traffic in that area with the increased businesses.
It is a challenge in this village, where the mixture of the houses particularly the older parts of the section. I live in one. It is. What were our fathers thinking of when they designed this city? Obviously, other things, but additional information, and not mean to make more work, but well worth looking into, I believe.
Okay, we'll bring something back.
I want to make, I don't want to drag you guys to another meeting, and we can make a motion. Did we address, I think, some of your questions? We're not going to make a decision tonight. We're going to take this back, we're going to study it. I do appreciate you all coming in and telling us how this is going to impact you. I love pictures, I love data, thank you. You've seen something there, so we do take your concerns very seriously. So we're not going to make a decision tonight. If you want to come back, you can. If you've got other questions or concerns based upon what you hear and whatnot, email any of us, contact any of us. We'll be happy to talk to you. Okay? Thank you very much.
But you're welcome to stay.
You-
It gets so much more
We
exciting.
have an exciting presentation about the airport. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 2, consider development agreement for Lake Bluff subdivision, Phase 3 with Belensky Homes, Inc. We have a memo here from Eileen. This is Phase 3. Phase 2 is wrapping up, and ready to move on to Phase 3, right? Okay. Any questions or concerns? We have a representative here from Belensky. Jason, any issues in Phase 2?
Nope, I was just going to point out that John was here. No, things are progressing rather quickly in Phase 2, I would say. They're, as soon as they finish one, they start another. Actually, they don't even finish one, they start another, so that's good. Hopefully, they're selling.
When was Phase 1?
Phase 1, before my time.
Wait a minute, you're not that much younger than I
Well,
am.
I said before my time with
Oh,
Linsky.
okay.
I believe 2006, maybe,
I was going to say 2005, I think, is when that kicked off.
somewhere around there.
Make a motion to approve the Phase 3 development agreement?
Second.
All right, Dan seconded. Any questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for coming out, and thanks for continuing to build homes here. All right, item 3, airport master planning presentation. Jason.
All right, I'm guessing everybody read this weekend?
Oh, yeah. You're good.
Yes, there's a lot of information in this document, and I will sit here and admit to you that I have not read every word of it either. Mike probably has, however. So with us tonight, we have a couple of consultant firms that worked with us on this project, Kaufman Associates and Strand, and then we have tonight with us Andy Trimble from the BOA, Bureau of Aeronautics in Madison. For some of you that are new, most of our projects that we do at the airport are federally funded. 90% federally funded, 5% state funded, and 5% local share, in other words, Village of East Troy. To continue doing those projects, we had to do a master plan. Andy, has a master plan ever been done at 57C? Okay. It's kind of a newer requirement, right? Now that the FAA is requiring these master plans. This is kind of the first step in the process. The next step is the ALP, Airport Layout Plan. Our current ALP is from 1998, so that's ready to be updated. But I'll let Mike take it from here and fill you in.
Thanks, Jason. I don't know who is clicking with me, but perfect. I'll hitch up every time I need to. I'm going to try to keep this at 30,000 feet. There's a lot of information in here, no doubt. Yes, this, we believe, is your first master plan. You might have had some minor planning work done. It isn't necessarily a newer requirement, but it is something that the BOA is catching up on. The region has put on them the requirement to get better into the planning side of things. At Kaufman Associates, we are a planning-only firm. I'm working through my 31st year of doing just planning. So this is just something we do. We're partnered up with Strand on this, and they do airport engineering, so it's a great partnership. So we get to plan it, and they get to build it. So that's kind of what we're here to talk about a little bit. But basically speaking, if you want to move through, what we're looking at, and if you want to click another, talk a little bit about what a master plan is. And again, if you have questions, please do throw up your hands. We can make this interactive. Really depends more on you on that. Basically, what a master plan is a document that gives you the opportunity to invest in your airport from a very strategic perspective. It's a plant type study analysis. The goal is to identify what's going on now, and then look at the next 20 years and what could happen based on both national and the local regional setting, and then make determinations on what you should be looking at to spur development at your airport, which could be either public investment or private investment. And so what we do is we follow along, and if you want to flip to the next, we follow along a very specific path that the FAA set forth in an advisory circular. And I'm going to apologize up front. We use a lot of acronyms. So if I throw out some acronyms and you just throw up your hand, I'll explain. But basically speaking, the FAA's ACs, or advisory circulars, guide what needs to be done at airports. One of them advises how to do a master plan, and we follow their process. We've also formulated what we believe is a unique way of doing it as well, so that we can both inform and educate the community about their facility. We followed a three-phase process. Our first phase carried through what we call the requirements phase. We looked at your inventory, your forecasting, and your facility requirements. The forecast is one of two things, and only two things, that get approved by the FAA in this entire process. And that is because the forecast will set forth the recommendations that we put forth later. So we've already set them in. September-ish of 24 is when we submitted those forecasts in for approval. The second is at the end. After this process, you'll go through what is known as an airport layout plan, or ALP approval process. That is the document that is highly technical. It is the drawing which represents the entirety of what we talk about here. So it is the drawing which then sets forth the ability for Jason and the village to go and ask for FAA and BOA funding. So it's very important. Those two pieces, and only those two pieces, are approved federally and statewide, while the remainder of it really is your document. This is your story about your airport and your community. And so what we do is we try to take the time to tell that story well, because most of the time the FAA will never see East Troy, with the exception of through a document like this one, okay? So we follow this process. One of the important parts, if you want to flip, is we very much value public outreach. And so as a part of the process, we do it in a two-pronged approach. First, we had Jason, worked with Jason and put together a team of stakeholders that had the opportunity to review the document as we prepared it. We had separate meetings with them where we provided the information and allowed for discussions and collaboration. And then from that, those evenings, we then had a public workshop where we invited the entire community to have the ability to ask us questions as we proceeded. As you see there, we had 3 PAC meetings, or Planning Advisory Committee. We then had 2 public workshops, and then this is our final opportunity. All the while, as we're showing up top, everything that is in this document from the time that we started has been put on that website right there. So anybody who had interest, and still who has interest, can review these documents at their leisure, and also make comments on that website. So our goal is to make sure that the story is being told, and anybody who has a desire to be involved can be.
And that is linked through the village website.
Correct. The key outcomes, these are the things that are the most important out of this document. Again, a lot of words, a lot of pictures, and a lot of exhibits. The most important, again, the aviation demand forecasting. That's basically an identification of what's happening with aircraft operations, aircraft that are based at your airport and the type of that airplane. Again, one of the most important outcomes of that is a determination of your critical aircraft. And if I put it on a roads perspective as an example, when you're building a bridge, the most important consideration for a bridge, at least for the roads perspective, is to make sure that it's high enough for the things that travel under it to get through, right? That's obvious. Same thing goes with airports. And we have to look at runways and taxiways and aprons and hangars and all the like in the same type of consideration based on what is that airplane that's going to have the most impact on your facility. We then move into a recommended development concept with an associated capital program, which identifies both staging of time and who would be likely to have to pay for these projects, which then translates later in the next phase, which will be your airport layout plan, which again sets forth your ability to ask for federal and state funds. Next slide. These are a representation, and again, a summary representation of your forecast. The two most important elements in aggregate are your aircraft operations. We identified approximately 41,000. This is an estimate. You don't have a tower, so we don't know it to be true exact. But based on activity as we understand it, you have about 41,000 annual operations, or a takeoff is 1, a landing is 2. You have approximately 78 based airplanes. We forecast that to go up to about 100, just under about 95 airplanes over the course of the next 20 years. And as we looked at your critical aircraft, what we came back with, if you want to go to the next slide, that critical aircraft is representative of what is known as an A1, B1, or B2, I'm sorry, A1, A2, B1, B2, small aircraft, meaning under 12,500 pounds, with very minimal approach minima. As we forecast the future, we believe that this could transition to a slightly larger aircraft profile, to say a King Air type airplane, still a turboprop, maybe a light jet, where you're going to go to the full B2 standard. So not a significant change at the airport. You may have some growth in numbers, but for the most part, the airport's profile will be similar. You will have biz jets and the like coming through at an irregular base, and maybe some light jets, and maybe even a jet based here, like a smaller Cessna Citation type airplane. In the future, you will likely have the greater capability of having an approach minimum, which is about a mile as well. This is representative of what we're showing you, and it's a lot on this drawing, and I apologize, and I'm not going to get into all the detail, but as an overview, anything you see in red is a pavement section that an airplane could go on. It's either a runway taxiway, or it could be an apron, or something in front of a hangar that they can get in and out of their hangars. Anything that's yellow is a rooftop. That could be a hangar, it could be an aviation business, it could be a terminal facility, or the like. Anything that is representative in blue is more of a public roadway. It could be a car or some sort of navigable road in and about the airport facility. And as you can see, what we do suggest is that you have the capability of enlarging the opportunity for more hangar development. And we're showing that primarily along the turf runway, which is aligned up and down on this exhibit. And you can see on both sides, you have plenty of room to develop a lot of those yellow rooftops. It's likely that this is representative of a potential and may never get close. I mean, you'll have private developers and the like that'll come in and look at that facility space, may come up with slightly different layouts or sizes of hangars, but this is representative of what could be done there. We are also showing the extension of your east-west runway of 600 feet, which would be better supportive of that slight change of aircraft profile to a B2 full, which again keeps you under 5,000 feet, so it's not a substantial change. You're likely not going to notice it if you're in the community as far as noise or any of the like. When we looked at it from an environmental perspective, it didn't provide any sort of significant change or profile on the environmental side. So as we see it, the vast majority of this is future. If you want to flip through to the next, we put together staging, and if you go one more, these are the overall numbers overarching. But as you can see it, everything in blue we're showing is representative of what we think can happen over the course of the next 5 years. So what we're seeing here, what would be on the west side of the turf runway, is the capability in the most easily developed properties for hangar development. And not only that, but some of the areas in and about the terminal itself now, there's some infill opportunity for additional hangar space as you proceed in the next 5 years. And if you move to the next slide, the yellow is the staging of the 5 to 10 year, or I'm sorry, 6 to 10 year. And if we go one more, we're showing you what that looks like. We're now moving more towards the east and out and away from the current terminal area with some improved roads, a couple taxiway changes, and additions to be supportive of those hangars. And then finally, if you look at the final 2 slides, one being the green representative of the long-term 10-year plus. This could be anywhere from 10 to 50 years, dependent upon demand. If you go one more, what you're seeing is this is where we're starting to look again beyond the turf runway, because you have substantial investments. Now you're going to extend utility infrastructure, roads and the like down into those locations, not to mention other public pavements. So this would be, again, representative of beyond 10. It's important to note that the one thing that we have to be very careful in our planning to at least educate communities is that grant funding is not guaranteed in any way, shape, or form. You are offered what is known as non-primary entitlements in the amount of about $150,000 per year. That's not going to pay a lot of bills, and it's certainly not going to be enough to provide the level of funding necessary for something that's on this drawing. And so what we always suggest is that much of what you look at in terms of future development should follow a demand profile. You do not build it, they will come. That is not something Andy and the BOA or the FAA are going to support anyhow. They would, for example, not want to put in a taxiway to nowhere so that you could build hangars in the future. What they're going to ask for is where's your letter of intent for those developers. If you have that, we'll support you with the taxiway improvement. So you're going to want to work hand in hand with Andy and the FAA to work with that through the demand so that their money is well spent, as is yours, the remainder of that 5%. So that is Jason and his purview and making sure that he's keeping up with the profile, making sure that the demand is being met, and if it's not, that you then move into the requests and move forward from there. I think that was my last slide. Okay, next steps. What we're asking tonight is not an approval by any means. It's really truly up to this village board on how you will do that. There is no requirement by the FAA or the BOA for you to provide a formal ordinance level approval or adoption. That's really more, it's to your comfort. The goal is they want to know that you would like to proceed so that they can then review the ALP as it's being done, understanding that this is your representative plan. There is no guarantee of funding. Either you're not committing to spending, nor are they committing to giving. It's simply a plan. And you're both simply engaging in this handshake of this is what we both think is good for the future of East Troy. So that's all you're committing to when you adopt or approve or whatever. You could do that tonight, or you could wait till the next meeting or whenever, and I'll leave that up to you. So with that, as soon as we're done here and we receive that, it'll be up to Strand to finish through with their ALP, which would be the Phase 2 contracting.
So don't go anywhere, Mike.
I'm not leaving.
As far as adopting it, the way I kind of see that going is similar to what we do with the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan and a resolution adopting it. I feel that that's probably the right way to go about this, unless you guys have a different thought. Again, it's still draft. If there's things you want to see added, changed, we can talk about that now, or we can adopt at a future meeting if that's the route you want to go.
This is just exciting to me, actually having a plan. We do or have in the past done some things that it's just like, well, this is what we should do with no clear direction. We've done better with our parks system by having a future plan. And this is just the next step in doing so. I think this is great. I love seeing something like this.
My involvement with the village started at the Airport Advisory Committee, I think in 2012 or 2013, maybe. So I'm like, Scott, it's like, this is great to have a plan and, a map. I spent most of I was listening, but I was like looking more at the map, as to what you had there. I just had a few questions, and something to what you were just asking, Jason, is what kept going in my head, especially with that map, is our comprehensive zoning plan that we have. And, that's a real formal thing, and we have to go through a big deal to amend and adopt. But I think, having some sort of resolution, like you said, where it's like, no, this is the plan, and should we need to change it, like we would come back and, have a motion or something to change it, but we don't need to do, formal ordinances.
What is the life on this, 20 years? How often are we doing these, Andy? What do we think? I mean, I know this is newer.
Generally speaking, the FAA asks you to do it for a GA airport, general aviation airport as you are, any 10 to beyond years. Again, you haven't had one formally approved before or adopted. It's good practice. After you now have a master plan, you can follow it with more minimal ALP narrative reports. The goal is anytime you change that ALP or airport layout plan, that's a federal action. And if you're not doing it in a planning assessment like this, you'll be doing it every time you do a hangar or anything of the like. You'll do pen and ink changes to that document. And sooner or later, that becomes just overwhelming, so you'll want to go back to a study. So it depends on how active you are, how much change is happening, how much you've done with that plan. Really, truly, I would suggest this is supposed to be a 10 to 20-year document in general.
You used a term I wasn't familiar with, non-primary. Could you, just a little more information?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the Federal Aviation System of airports, public airports, there's about 3,300, just under. And that is the airports to which FAA actually funds or has the capability of funding. And so Congress does what they call the NIPIAS every 2 years, the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems. And in that, they've classified airports based on if they're primary or non-primary as the two general categories. Primary is anything you can go to and get on a United Airlines type airplane. Anything non-primary, some of them carry the smaller airlines, but most of that is general aviation activity, just to keep it in general terms. And so grant funding is broken down by the categories of airports. So if you're a primary airport, you're going to get more money. It takes a lot more to take care of Madison and Milwaukee and O'Hare than it does this airport. So they have a lot more funding availabilities to them and mechanisms in the grant funding program. So being a non-primary, you're basically allowed $150,000 every year. You would then match with 5 and 5, 5 from the BOA and 5 from the local. It doesn't go very far. When you're talking about major projects, you can bank that for basically 3+ years. So you could turn $150,000 into $650,000, but you have to wait to spend it over the course of several years. So there's a lot of things that go into the funding mechanisms, and again, you have really good people that help you spend your money that you talk with every year. And Jason works with the BOA in setting up your annual capital improvement program, or ASIP. I'm going to keep going if you ask. And so all of this is something that is being done behind the scenes that you're probably not aware of, but is very much being done by Jason, staff, plus the BOA and their consultants.
Where's the bank?
The bank, actually, this is really good news. If you're quite conservative, I kind of am. This is more along the lines of a tollway. Every time you fly on an airline, 7.5% of your cost of your ticket is taxed into an aviation trust fund. That trust fund is then directed annually under federal law where it's obligated and where they actually spend the money out of what's called the Airport Improvement Program, or AIP. I told you I can keep going on all day. So AIP is this pot of money which is segregated by type. So again, primary, non-primary, each state gets an allotment. There's noise money set aside. It's a giant pool of money that is spent every year. Right now, it's at about $3.4 billion. It just went up to 4 in the new bill. George Bush set it at 3.2. George Bush Jr., and it stayed there till last year, where it went from 3.4-ish to $4 billion. And again, this money is not paid for by the general public. This is actual revenues generated by the aviation system. So it's a user fund system, which is a good thing, I think. But, yeah.
Well, do we ever get a tower?
No.
No, okay.
Short answer. Nor, frankly, nor do you want to. Yeah,
So-
it's very unlikely, very unlikely.
Your question though about a tower is one of my questions, which is, so without a tower, one of the things we've struggled with is to measure
Yes.
traffic. And you talked about, a demand base versus build it and they will come. What are your recommendations on how to improve that to better measure that other than, oh yeah, I'm a developer and we'll build some hangars out here. It's like, what's the data we can use to incentivize that?
Well, there's some really good tools now that may not have been available when you were on the board. One of them, the FAA, has developed its own internal mechanism with what is known as ADS-B, where the properly equipped airplanes and receivers can be watched. If you have FlightAware, right? Anybody that picks up FlightAware, and anybody can do this, if you don't know what it is and you're a geek like I am, you can sit and watch airplanes move around all over the place. Because they all have transponders, basically, is what it is, and you can watch them move. We now have the capability of putting that on your airport, and there are paid-for services. There's several of them, so I'm not going to brand name, but there's many out there that can actually, anything that moves around your airport can be counted into a database. You have to pay for it. The other part of that is it also will, if you buy the geodetic side of it, you can watch airplanes move exactly on your airport. So you know which taxiways they're hitting, you know which hangars they're going in and out of. But again, that comes with a cost. And so with that, you can build case for justification. The way that Andy usually goes about, there's two words for justification. It's is it eligible? Is it justified? I've heard of feasible as the third, the JEF acronym, but all that said, if you can prove those hurdles, you can then ask for the money and receive it. So one of the hurdles, as you know, is can you prove that aircraft operation, which you need to have a runway extension, as an example. So with tools like what you're asking for, if you put something like, for a tower, I'd throw one out there, just whatever. There's many. I don't want to advertise for anyone, but there are opportunities for you to do that. Without a tower, much cheaper.
Yeah, I don't want a tower. I guess, we do have a number of businesses that are out, like one of our businesses there is, restoring old warbirds, so they're not going to be, flying around with ADS-B.
Right.
And I don't know what percentage of our traffic that is, but is it possible to then link that ADS-B data with any of our fueling, fuel sales data?
The thing about technology is, and with AI coming, I'm sure there's going to be a way to do just about anything. If you want to just truly geek out with data, you can do a lot of that. Especially if you got, again, geodetic tied to it. You can watch what happened with that airplane. Absolutely.
I don't want to monopolize the time. I do have a few other questions, though. So if others have questions, please jump in. So one of the things, we have a 3,900-foot runway. You talk about long-term, they're going to 4,500, and I'm assuming that was kind of in your classification change there as a type of aircraft.
Yep.
Is there any benefit to talking about a 5,000-foot runway, or is that not feasible given the topography that's further east there?
Yeah, you'd have to do some other things. We looked at several alternatives. That was part of the analysis here. It really became not just the limitations or restrictions, but also what is reasonable. And the question that we could not really get past is to get to 5,000. And these numbers are really truly nebulous because each operator, based upon their airplane and their setup, it could be any number. And so it's really hard to come to a final. So when we do this, it really comes out as a normative. And so this type of airplane we're suggesting as your critical aircraft, the normative will be about 4,500 feet. The likelihood is you will have to prove that exact number, and it could change. It could end up being 5,000 feet. For example, if it were a Citation one of the medium-sized citations. You theoretically could get to 5,000 feet, and you'd have to moderate the ALP and change that a little bit to come out with that. And there's ways you can get to 5,000, by the way. You could probably get much longer than that if you worked at it. You may have to do something with those things off to the east, and if that helps. But that's part of the reason you update your master plan too, because you go back and you ask the same questions. Where are we now? Where are we going 20 years from now? A lot of things are changing. I have not even talked about advanced air mobility. I mean, that could change some stuff on your airport as well. You're proximate enough to Milwaukee and to the north side of Chicago where advanced air mobility may become an issue for you. And basically what advanced air mobility, or AAM, is in layman's terms, it's the Jetsons real. AAM is the future of piloted, unpiloted quadcopters moving people for hire, like taxi cabs. Again, and that's a very layman way of putting it, but there's a lot of platforms out there right now that are going through these testings. World Cup's going to prove it out here. There's a number of airports getting ready for it. And so all that said, it'll be interesting next 20 years, because if that happens, you may need to build a terminal to support. It could be like these park and rides, right? But a little different. People could fly from here to anywhere in the Chicagoland or over to Milwaukee in minutes instead. So, yeah. It's possible. It's
Yes,
possible.
please. Okay, so my last question is, when I like the figures of how you broke them down, federal, state, and local. One of our challenges is, and the impetus to do this and to do some of the expansions is to increase the revenue so that the airports generate, so it becomes more self-sustaining. But to do that, as you pointed out, we're going to have to do some investment. What are some of the funding mechanisms you've seen municipalities like us do besides just trying to find it and levy?
Yeah.
Because in Wisconsin, that's very challenging to do. So what are alternative options here?
Well, and you're right. There's a lot of handcuffs on you in Wisconsin with what's going on and has gone on recently with state change. But, EDC is a big tool for a lot of airports. If you could figure out a way to leverage any sort of EDC money locally, private investment, you have a hangar waiting list right now. So there are people in the area that want to be here that can't because there's no space available. Making sure that you keep in line with market on your lease rates. Many airports, they're hesitant to up or increase rates because, frankly, many people who own airplanes shouldn't because they don't have the money to do it, not unlike anything else in this country. But the reality is it's hard to then ask for that more money, too, with the fear that you may lose a tenant. So you should be in line with market, and if you are, and those are the ways, sometimes it really does come down to the fact that the municipality must help support that facility. And it's not hard. It's not really a hard ask, and I say that not just because I'm an aviation lover and I'm going to support airports until I go, but the reality is this: communities thrive because they have a lot of different things to offer to their constituents. Parks. Great example. They cost a lot of money, they don't pay anything. Pools cost a lot of money, they pay little. Golf courses cost a lot of money, they pay little, but they make your community a better place to live. Parking you were talking about earlier. I don't think you're going to collect rates on that. I think you're doing it to make the community a better place in general. And the same goes with airports. Sometimes you need to make public investment, and it's not easy. And so, those are things you have to think through. What is the best way to spend that money to improve our community? But aviation definitely pays at least some of its way, and most airports like yours do not fully pay for themselves. It's not uncommon. But I can tell you this, you're leveraging $9.50 for every 50 cents you spend on a capital improvement that you get through this guy over here. That's pretty substantial. Not many programs like that in the country either.
Mike, talk a little bit more about the public-private partnership. This is something I learned about through this process. It's happening evidently more and more where airports are bringing in private developers to develop an area of hangars, and then said private developer leases the hangars out. So maybe just
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah,
Because I think this could be a good option for us when it does come time to get some more hangar space.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, it's not incumbent upon the village to build all the hangars. As a matter of fact, that's becoming rarer and rarer. Most airports actually lease the land and RFP the opportunity for a developer to come in and build hangars. They then are the master developer and leasehold operator of that facility, still beholden to your master lease. So you basically give them a parcel of property and you say, you know, you charge them 20 cents a square foot or more per year, and then they could do whatever they want with that property as long as it's in your covenants. I mean, of course, you want to do minimum standards and the like, but the reality is you don't have to make that that sizable investment. And you then have the opportunity under FAA regulation, you have to minimize the lease to be no more than 50 years. Usually it's 30. You want to make sure that the operator has the opportunity to amortize that loan, right? Because the bank won't give them money otherwise. So you want to give them at least 30. Sometimes you give another 10 as an option. But most of the time, those leaseholds then revert back to you. And again, that's language within your lease. You want to be clear on that. So at the end of that leasehold, you not only had the opportunity of generating a revenue every year for 30 years plus, you now have the opportunity to take that facility back and redevelop it and use it again. And so there's a lot of things happening that allow that. Again, whatever's best for the community, but we're seeing that a lot across the country. It is being done more often than the communities themselves doing the hangars.
Doug, you have anything you want to add?
Very detailed. Even from our advisory committee, we've had people looking at the big picture, but like I said, a lot of people out here are not going to see another 40 years or whatever of aviation expansion. But the little starts that we saw with the expansion on the southern side of the runway kind of get a little light to what's available. And the big picture is really, just to see how much it can expand out is very encouraging.
Sorry, I was just sidebarring there with Jim. I think to the discussion about whether we approve something tonight or not, I'd like for the advisory committee to have a chance to, have a very detailed conversation, and maybe there's a better time to get, I know many of them are here, but for more, hangar owners or, users at the airport to maybe talk at the advisory, committee and see if there's anything that they would want to change since this is draft or have questions about, and then once you guys are good with it, then bring it back and we'll approve it.
Yeah, we'll bring back a resolution then.
Yeah, does that sound amenable to the rest of the board? Okay. Other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Don't do it at night.
yeah,
Movie version coming out soon?
First thing in the morning. What's that?
Movie version coming out soon?
The audible version, well, sure.
yeah. No, I really want to thank you. I know we're joking about the depth of this, but that's great. Like, and just some of just even this discussion, I've got a lot of questions answered I've had for a long time, and my involvement with the airport. So thank you. We're really excited about this. Thanks for the work. And I think if we got a couple of questions, Jason will send them to you. But
Appreciate it. Thank you. It's been an honor to work for you. It's been great. We've enjoyed it, so thank you very much.
yeah, thank you. Okay. Item 4, consider well 10 sighting study. Jason.
So this is another journey that we're about to embark on. Is Ryan on the call? Ryan Wood? Okay. Can you hear us, Ryan?
Yes, I am.
There he is, all right.
Yep.
So Ryan Wood with
Is this
Strand.
vocal okay?
Yep, sounds good. As you know, we work with Strand and the water utility as our consultant. Well 8, as we know, had PFAS detects in December of 2023. We took that offline. We no longer use it. It's one of our 4 wells. We have 2 deep wells, 5 and 7, and then we have 2 shallower wells, 6 and 8. and 8 has the elevated levels of PFAS. Well 6, another shallow well, also has PFAS detects. Currently not concerning. However, as we lean on that aquifer more, because we took well 6, well 8 offline, that could potentially draw more PFAS into the well itself. So, general recommendation at this point is to begin to develop a well that could replace both wells 6 and 8 at some point, another large capacity well. And the first step in that is to do a well siting study. Ryan, anything I missed there, big picture that you want to add?
I don't think there's a whole lot. I think you summarized it pretty well. I will say that we did the master planning effort last year, which really detailed the anticipated capacity we would want for this well, for both growth reasons and replacing wells 6 or well 8 and potentially well 6. So we looked at all of those items, I guess.
One other thing I would add too, we recently had our sanitary survey, which is a survey we get every 3 years by the DNR of our water utility. And they came in, and I'll be bringing this to you, I believe, at the next meeting. One of their comments back on that survey was, we got to start to figure out what we're doing with well 8. So this kind of starts that process.
Yeah. Well, and well 8 also has a generator that's pretty much toast, right?
Yes, it was a used generator when the village purchased it back in the 80s. So, and the part of the reason we've decided that a new well would be the direction to go, well 8, while it's good water, other than the PFAS, it's a smaller producing well. It doesn't have a high output. It's only about a 300 gallon a minute well. So that works great now, but as our community grows, we all know we're going to need more water.
And
And just go ahead. Sorry.
well, I was just going to ask a quick question, I guess, for both you and Jason. So would we ultimately abandon 6 and 8, or what if PFAS treatment becomes commercially viable?
Yeah, so right now it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be financially viable to treat well 8 PFAS. So the idea would be to, yes, abandon well 8 and then see where 6 goes. We would continue to utilize 6 as long as we can until such a time came along that we had to, based on results. Or maybe those levels never increase anymore, and we just continue to use it as a smaller producing well.
I'll make a motion to approve well 10 siting study, this proposal not to exceed $54,700.
I'll second.
We'll give that one to Jim. Just, I guess, last comment is that I would like to understand the legal risks associated with sites that we might identify so we avoid situations like well 7.
Any comment on that, Ryan?
Can you remind me what the
Well
legal
7
issues at
was-
well 7 were?
Was the large capacity well that there was a lawsuit from the local lake district? It changed the way DNR approves these wells?
Yeah, okay. That rings a bell now. I don't know if we do anything really differently from how that well was done, but there is a process that the DNR requires us for these, and our plan is identifying sources of contamination that could be around that area, looking at potential lots that the village could purchase, looking at the potential to extend the water main to those lots, looking at potential growth near the source. So there's all, there's a lot of criteria that going into picking the well options that we're looking at. So,
To that point, I mean, we certainly wouldn't want to go near an existing well. You know, we don't want to do any harm to that aquifer that's already producing well. We don't want to go anywhere near 6 or 8 aquifers because we know what's going on there. We have a landfill to the south we have to work around. So we do have some concerns that, and we've had some high-level conversations about this already, so.
Just wanted to make the comment, so. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you very much, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
All right, staff reports, municipal
you.
court, April 2025. Any questions or comments on that? All right, item 2, April financial report. Questions or comments for Eileen? All right, item 3, clerk update, Excellent Cafe. This was a follow-up to our last meeting, and they're officially withdrawing their application. Any questions on that? All right, committee reports, draft plan commission minutes from May 12th. Questions for Brian or me? All right, airport committee minutes. If you want to talk more about the airport? Now's your time. All right, library board minutes from April 8th. Mary, anything there?
Yeah. We anticipate being able to be at the next board meeting to do a presentation on the architectural firm we're interested in approving to look into a study. We did some tours of libraries the one firm has, so I'll leave you with anticipation what to expect.
I got a question for you, Mary. So I know of someone that reads a lot. We're talking like 100 books a year, no joke. And she went to our library and was a little disappointed in the fact that they wanted to charge late fees. Apparently, a majority of the libraries in the area have all done away with late fees. Lake Geneva's gone away from those. McQuantico, everybody around us has. Is there ever a discussion about it? Is there that much revenue that library brings in because of those? It's a little discouraging and for some people that do enjoy the library.
Some of the late fees we have gotten rid of. We'll continue to look at that, watching the fees. So yes, we are monitoring what is going on and whether it's worth the amount of money we're bringing in. Yes, but thank you for asking.
I hope to hear from Derek Daria an update on the resolution or the state statute changes. I did talk with Mark Liberta a little bit at the ICC meeting, and there's some verbiage finagling that they're still working with Speaker Voss's office on that. So, anything else for the library? Okay, I will make a motion to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 1985 P1E, or is that? And Wisconsin statute deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever a competitive bargaining reasons require a closed session specifically to discuss negotiation strategy for possible future TID projects. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote, please.
President Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee Harding?
Yes.
Trustee Holm?
Yes.
Trustee Moody?
Here.
Trustee Nugent?